Oh, we don't have any attendees from the public that I see. Okay. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here and getting sworn in. You may have a question that our terms are all ending on different years. Some of them end in 2021, like this coming December 2021. Some end in 2023. And the reason they do that is just to stagger the end times of people's terms so that everybody doesn't evacuate at the same time. So this way we have a blend. So what I see right now is Pam and Matthew. We're going to have to watch your terms because they end in December of this year, and we will just swear you in again for another, full term after that. So some of us are finishing up terms of other commissioners who had left. And it doesn't mean that you are any more or less of a commissioner than anybody else. They're just staggered dates. So it's just a formality, but we are all commissioners now, which is great. And so I wanted to introduce everybody to Barbara Crandall. Barbara, can you wave for us?
Hello.
Hi, Barbara.
Barbara is
Hi, Barbara.
She's the clerk for the Conservation Commission and many other commissions. So she's here to take the minutes of our meeting, which is a huge help. So she takes notes and recordings and then provides us with the minutes via email before the next meeting. So she gave us the minutes of our last meeting, which was October 28th, 2020. And normally I would have someone approve the minutes and second them and then have the commission approve. But Barbara, I don't think that we can because we don't have a quorum without the new commissioners. So I don't think we
right. I think they just have to pass.
Okay, so we'll just pass and you have them to read just to see what we did in that October meeting. The bulk of the meeting was reviewing our natural resource inventory, which I think I sent to everybody a link. If you didn't look at it, that's okay, because it's very big. But we're going to talk about that tonight. So one other point of business, Barbara, could you, now that we have all the new commissioners and their emails, would you be able to send the 2021 meeting schedule out?
Sure.
To everybody?
Sure. Will do.
So we have we have a meeting scheduled for March 31st, but we won't do that because we're meeting now. So we have our next meeting scheduled for April 28th. So, and the reason these dates were picked is because they are a week in advance of the inland wetland meetings. So this way we get the inland wetland agendas so that we can look at them in our meetings. And if there's something there that we want to review or make a recommendation on, we have time to draft something to get to inland wetland, which is next week. But we're kind of out of sync until April 28th. So that would be great if we can get those dates. We meet monthly, except we don't meet in July and August. And looks like we're meeting twice in September 1st and September 29th, and then October 27th. And so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more meetings this year. And then it's Christmas.
Time flies.
Yeah, time flies. So I wanted to just welcome everybody. I'm so excited about this new team because obviously I know all of you, but I know all of you from different interactions I've had with you on groups or teams we've worked on before and projects we've worked on before. So it would be great if we could just go around and introduce ourselves and who we are and why we're interested in this, being on this commission. And I guess I'll start. So Mary Ellen LeMay, I've been the chair for, I think, 9 or 10 years now. when I was on town council in 2006, 7, I was on for 4 years. We didn't have a conservation commission. So one of the last things I did on before I lost my seat by 3 votes was I created a resolution to form a conservation commission. And it was formed in about 2009. And I didn't sit on it at that time, but that was our first conservation commission in probably 20 or 30 years. So we've done a lot of great things. I'm a conservationist. I work for the Aspetuck Land Trust. I used to be the president of the Trumbull Land Trust when we had it, but it doesn't exist anymore. And I just love conservation and environmental science. And I have a master's from the Yale School of Forestry, which is now called the Yale School of the Environment, which I got at age 50. And so this is my passion. And for me to be able to give this back to my town and work with a team like this has just been an incredible gift to me. So I'm excited about this group, and I'm excited about working with you guys again. And with the folks that have been on for a couple of years with me, like Richard and Tim, and then all the new folks. So so welcome everybody. So I'll go to Tim Coughlin, because he's been on for many years too. And then I'll go to Richard. So Tim, if you want to introduce yourself to everybody.
Hi, my name's Tim Coughlin, and I've been a Trumbull resident for 57 years now. I was born and raised here. I've always had a interest in the outdoors, environmentally. My mother said ever since I was a little kid. So I have my undergraduate in environmental horticulture from UConn. Have been in the green industry for probably 40 years now. I currently am employed with the town of Greenwich. I'm an operations manager for the Parks Department, and we manage all the properties in Greenwich for the school system and the park system. We have a very robust organic land care management program that we initiated starting 10 years ago. And I love being on the Conservation Commission. It is a thrill for me. Mary Ellen and I have been working together for 5 or 6 years now, and looking forward to a new turn for us with new people and new adventures. So that's who I am.
Great, thank you, Tim. Great, thank you. And you're a licensed arborist as well.
Yes, I'm a licensed arborist, and I have I am a supervisory commercial supervisory license with the Connecticut DEP on the pesticide side. Even though we don't put any down, I've been licensed for like 35 years with the state now. So.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Richard Post.
I'm Richard Post. I'm an environmental geologist, retired now. And I have undergraduate and graduate degrees in geology and earth science. I'm also on the signal of Trumbull with Mary Ellen and Pam. We've been doing that now for a couple of years. I think I started the Conservation Commission, 4 years ago or 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Seems like yesterday.
Exactly, yeah. And it's been great. I moved here in 2013. I was on the town of Southington Conservation Commission, Inland Wetlands Commission. It's a dual commission there. We have meetings, half one, half the other. And so I just have interest in environment. My background is more in remediation. I work for Sikorsky Aircraft, Unite Technologies, and remediation. And so if there was a pollution or we had a chemical spill, I was one of the ones who was called, lucky me. And I'm also, I just became a Trumbull CERT Community Emergency Response Team member a couple of months ago. And so I think I'm on 3 different things. And so, I probably focus more on, in the environment remediation, water, natural resources type of things. It's kind of where my focus more is and my interest. And I'm also into amateur radio, and I just got a drone. I want to become a licensed drone operator. So I'm going to work on that little. It's not that big of a deal to get a license, but that's one of my things. Which actually, if you have expensive drones, they can actually do natural resource reconnaissance. You can look at different, we can fly 400 feet maximum elevation. And so you look over an area that you couldn't walk into. And even sometimes with just regular photography, you can, see things that might be leaking or springs or, some sort of environmental damage, landfill, things like that. Especially over, wetlands where you don't want to walk in and sink up to your waist in muck. So that's kind of my story. And welcome everybody. So I met Pam, but I don't know the other folks, but welcome. It's a fun group, by the way.
Thank you, Richard. And so John Massari, I'm going to ask him to tell us about him. He came to a meeting last February before COVID hit and expressed his interest in being on our commission. And a lot of crazy things happened, not only on the commission, but in the world since we saw John last. And he has stayed patient through this whole process. And he is finally here as a commissioner 1 year after requesting it. And so we're proud to have you here, John. So if you want to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Sure. I've lived in Trumbull for over 30 years. I raised all my children. I'm originally from Stanford. First time I volunteered in Trumbull, I was a Long Hill firefighter for about 5 years. Always been interested in the outdoors, even though I was an inner city kid. I am a senior bow hunting instructor for the Connecticut DEEP. I am on the Connecticut Conservation Advisory Council, which advises the DEEP on wildlife and environmental restoration, mostly. And I am the president of the Connecticut Hunter Education Association, which is all the instructors that teach for the DEP as far as hunting and trapping. That's about it. I own my own business in Stanford, and I keep kind of busy. I'm involved in quite a few things, but I love Trumbull. I'm planning on staying here, and I want to give something back. That's
Great.
about it.
Thank you. So, so John and everyone else that will introduce themselves, if you could just give us an idea of, you have interest in being on the Conservation Commission. Is there anything in particular you'd like for us to do that we haven't done yet, or any ideas that you might want to share with us that we can maybe work on?
Well, one of the things that we do on the Connecticut Conservation Advisory Council is we work on forest rehabilitation. In the Valley this year, we advised the DEP of problems with the forestry. And over Connecticut, I believe they cut down 40,000 trees that were damaged and were concerned to public health, public safety. And they cut down quite a few trees in the Valley, if any of you have been on the path. And that was a big undertaking for the state of Connecticut. So I think that, the quality of our forests are very, very important. The underbrush and the vegetation, obviously, we've got to keep that healthy to keep a good environment that we have for all our wildlife. And I'm very interested in that. Health of wildlife and our environment is just a top priority to myself.
That's great. And, and I think education is so important for people to understand that the health of our forests and our vegetation and our landscape is the foundation for everything else, from the insects to the pollinators to the birds to the mammals. They're all connected. And if our forests are not healthy, then it impacts everything. And, this commission has talked for many years about some sort of a tree ordinance or a tree management plan. And I think, with all the tree removal that's going on, even of our street trees, that's something that we can maybe revisit on this commission, is maybe some sort of a replanting or forestry health initiative. So that's great that you have an interest in that. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
So Pam Roman, would you like to tell us about yourself?
Hi there. It's nice to meet everyone. I think I've met a couple of you, and Richard, of course. I know Richard. Well, I am originally from Norwalk, grew up in Norwalk, and moved to Trumbull in 2000 when I bought my first house here. And at the time I was working in New York City, 30-year career in the book publishing industry, and I was vice president of sales at Penguin Random House. And as many corporate jobs do, that one went away in late 2018. And I reassessed what I wanted to do with my days. I mean, I was never home. Left the house at 5 in the morning and I got home 7 at night. And I have always been a passionate gardener. I'm a birder. I feed birds, and I have a vegetable garden. I have a flower garden. And I thought that it would be fun to volunteer and do some things while I looked for my next act. And I started volunteering with TNEC during their day camps, where I met Kevin Malone, and we started talking about composting. And I had been in California, and they have composting as a way of life there. So I became very evangelical about composting and why don't we do that here? And he suggested I join Sustainable Trumbull. So I did. And that's where I met Mel and Richard. And I'm currently on the Sustainable Trumbull Committee. And I would say that my bailiwick, for lack of a better word, on the Sustainable Trumbull Committee is all things plants and flowers. I'm very passionate about the Pollinator Pathway. I've done a lot of work in my home, and I'm kind of, to reuse the word, I'm kind of an evangelist for it now. We have a meeting next week with Town Hall with Vicki and with George to try and get composting at the town transfer station. So, all those things I think are really important, and I would love to kind of merge what we're doing on Sustainable, some of those things with this committee if possible. And I did a Zoom last night with Trumbull Community Women, and one thing that was interesting is that most people don't know anything about some of the things we talk about with such knowledge, like Pollinator Pathway. So I think educating the public has to be at the fore of things that I'd like to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it.
Great. Thank you, Pam. Yeah, Pam's been a big driver and working with the team for the Pollinator Pathway too, helping with people who get their properties certified and get those Pollinator Pathway signs. So, so when we drive Pollinator Pathway to finally begin here in Trumbull, that will be important. And, and I think John's work in the sign business will help us too, because we'll have to begin to make some of our own Trumbull signs, so we can do some fundraising for that. So that would be great. Okay, so the next person, so the next two, Sarah Sterling and Matthew Ziki, I know from the Aspetuck Land Trust, and have worked with them or met them in meetings or worked with them on projects. And I was so delighted to know that they lived in Trumbull, and I thought they'd be perfect fit on our commission. So Sarah, if you could introduce yourself, that would be great.
Sure. So yes, I met Mel through the Aspetuck Land Trust. We moved to Connecticut 2007, and we moved to Trumbull in 2008. Kind of lived all over. Grew up in Florida. Before we lived here, we lived in Las Vegas. So I've seen a lot of different kinds of natural environments, but we love being outdoors. I have a middle school kid, so kind of as he's grown up, the importance of open spaces, green spaces, places with different varieties and ways to engage, from the parks to the hiking trails, have been good for our family, and I want more of that for more people. I don't yet necessarily have a passion area to evangelize, but I did notice nobody has mentioned the water. And in fact, when I went for a walk, I live near Twin Brook Park. And as I was walking home and I saw the water draining into the storm drain, it made me think, I have no idea what the town is putting down on the roads and what is being put into the water supply. So just as Mel said, the importance of, forest and the impact that it has on the greater ecosystem. I feel like water is right there with the trees.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we all live in a watershed of one sort or another, and whatever goes into the water goes into the sound, and living near the river. So,
and just specifically, my education is in math. And so I'm pretty handy with numbers and data, surveys, any way of looking at, numbers and understandings, more logical. I'm more logical than emotional. So.
That's great. Well, Sarah was a big help for me when I started working with the Aspetuck Land Trust, because I was put into a new role that didn't exist before, which was homeowner or landowner engagement. So she helped to design a survey that we sent out to the land trust members and asked them about the things we're talking about tonight, which is native plants and the use of pesticides and how you treat your backyards. And the data that was collected from that survey helped to inform my job. And so for the last 2 years, I've been kind of following the pathway that was developed through Sarah's survey. And, and I don't know that, I think it's something that may be important for us here in Trumbull to do, because I don't think there's ever been any real survey about what people are interested in terms of the natural world here in Trumbull and our trails and our parks. And so I have that on my wish list, that maybe we can do a town survey and we can drive it. So thank you, Sarah. And last but not least, Matthew.
Hi, Mary Ellen. Hi, team. Nice to meet everybody. Thanks for the invite, Mary Ellen, to joining the commission. I think one of the things that got me excited is one day somebody would call me a commissioner, and that was something on my wish list. But my background is actually in economics. I have graduate degrees in economics, and I'm a vice president in the United Health Group, and I focus a lot on healthcare research. And so if you have any questions on copay or why the healthcare system is broken, do not ask me. I am not a physician, but either way, I have an interest in horticulture and landscape design, and also preserving the future. I've been a Trumbull resident for about 6 years now, and we have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And when we were choosing where to live, there's Trumbull, there's Monroe, there's Fairfield, and what really attracted us to Trumbull was the open space, was the parks, was the water. And it's something that that obviously why we chose Trumbull, but also something we want to keep open and alive and healthy for future generations. And so that's something that I'm passionate about, along with the Pollinator Pathway. I'm kind of, I'll say self-taught, but in some ways I'm learning as much as I can. I planted 20 trees on our property last year. We've got this whole path of native perennials. So I'm a bit obsessed with that and learning as much as I can. I'm happy to be on the committee, and nice to meet you all. Thanks, Mary Ellen.
Great. Thank you, Matthew. That's great. Yeah, wonderful. So this is a great group, and it's just so nice to have new people with new ideas and new areas of expertise that we can tap into. And that's always been the strength of this commission from the very beginning. Is it's been a multidisciplinary group, and I think that diversity adds a lot of strength to the things that we can drive in the town. So so I just wanted to review briefly. I had sent out a list of not only the members, but the accomplishments from this past year and what some of our goals are for the year coming up. And the goals coming up are not necessarily written in stone. And I think some of the fresh ideas that you guys shared tonight are things that we can add to for our goals and objectives. And so the nice thing about the Conservation Commission is it's an advisory commission, whereas Planning and Zoning and Inland Wetland are regulatory commissions, which means they follow state regulations for zoning, planning, inland wetlands, and that's the group of laws that inform their decisions. We are advisory, which gives us the opportunity to use our science-based discussions and ideas and recommendations and share them with inland wetlands, or share them with planning and zoning, or share them with land acquisitions. Land acquisitions is also not a regulatory commission. That's a fairly new commission. So, and parks also. So, you know, we're kind of like that commission in the middle that can go to Parks and Rec, work with us, work with them there. And that's where our natural resource inventory kind of emerged from. And then planning and zoning, we contact them, we kind of watch what they're doing, and inland wetland the same way, land acquisitions, but also economic development, reaching out to you know, some of our builders and developers and getting them to be more sustainable in their practices. So it's a great and a unique opportunity to be on this commission, because we're kind of you know, free as a science-based commission to oversee the protection and supervision of natural resources in Trumbull. And one of the first things that a Conservation Commission is tasked with doing is a natural resource inventory. And it's a daunting task, especially in a town like Trumbull, where we have so many parks and open spaces. To actually inventory all of them it's quite a project. It's a multi-year project. So it took this commission, well, close to 10 years. Actually, I'll say 8 years, 7 or 8 years, to decide that we were going to go forward with a natural resource inventory. And so that I have as our biggest accomplishment for 2020 was actually completing phase 1 and 2 of the natural resource inventory. And I'd shared the link with you. It's quite a document of, God, it's over 600 pages or more. It's massive. But it took 2 years for Jim Norgren, who's an ecologist, to do this inventory, boots on the ground. He went to every single park, every open space through the town, evaluated what he saw in terms of the health of the trees, the vegetation, if he saw invasives, what kind of animals he saw there. And it's really a great resource for us. First time in this town that we've ever had a natural resource inventory. So that was our biggest accomplishment. And now that we have it, our job as the commission is to go through it, edit it, and craft it in such a way that it's a usable document for all those land use boards that I mentioned before, and the town as a whole. So for planning and zoning, for inland wetlands, that they can go to this document. So I'll talk about that again. The Pollinator Pathway, we launched a year ago, February, at the library. And then COVID hit, and it just kind of stalled like everything else in the world. But now we're excited about going forward and launching our own town Pollinator Pathway. And so just, I guess, a little bit about me. I've been launching Pollinator Pathways around the state and in other states for 3 years now. 17, 18, 19, 20, no, 4 years. I started in February of 2017. So it is something I do. I'm not paid for it. I'm a volunteer, but it was a conservation outreach project that I began working on with a team. So we haven't really launched one in this town. So what I would love to do is just kind of relaunch it. And you know, Pam has on her Sustainable Trumbull committee has brought up the fact that, you know, Pollinator Pathway is something that we can get a lot of points for is for our Sustainable Trumbull certification. And I will let Richard and Pam talk a little bit about that, but that's our next thing. We submitted for Sustainable Connecticut certification, which is kind of like, I don't know if you know what LEED certification is, but let's say a building is extremely ecologically friendly, it will get points and become a platinum LEED certified building because it's got all the bells and whistles that makes it green. Sustainable CT is the same thing, except for towns, for municipalities. So it has each town go through a checklist of 9 categories and look at areas of not only land protection, but recycling and diversity and access to the arts. And there's 2 categories. You can get a bronze or silver. They don't have gold yet. And this sustainable CT team worked very hard and we got bronze certification. Yay! Which is great because it gave us an opportunity to get credit for good things that we've done, things that we're doing now. And what I'd love to do as our commission is do some additional things that can push us to silver certification. That's the next step. The other things, create a multi-committee land use training and advisory team with Yukon Clear. So again, I think it was March or April, we had a Zoom about low impact development, which is green development, which is like green infrastructure, using natural systems to capture stormwater. And so like Sarah was saying, she observed today the water running down into the storm drains and then into the streams, into our streams and lakes. Green infrastructure would be a system that would help to capture that and clean it before it went into our lakes and rivers and streams. So we had a Zoom that every member, we had multiple members of every land use board that showed up on that Zoom. And that was the first time I've ever seen that happen. And I was so glad to see that. So that tells me that if we provide educational programs that interest our other commissioners or other commissions, they will come. And we have an opportunity to share best practices with them. Also recently, our zoning and inland wetland regulations were being updated. And we were invited to help to craft some new regulations. And that's still an ongoing process. So there were some big accomplishments, especially in a year of COVID, where we still got some stuff done. So under goals and objectives for coming up in this year, again, as I said, let's roll out the results of the natural resource inventory, but I want our team to look at it first. I want you guys to look at it first. Number 2, launch Pollinator Pathway for this town, finally. Work on a public survey on conservation, open space, and tree issues. That's something, for example, that, Sarah can guide us on, which is really helping to do outreach and collect the data. Work on a tree replacement plan with Sustainable Trumbull team. And, the help of John with his interest in the health of our tree canopy. And we already achieved this goal. We filled the 4 open slots on the Conservation Commission. So yay, let's check that box off. So there's just those things that we have as the idea for our goals and objectives for this year coming up. But I would like for Pam and Richard to just kind of share with us their work on the Sustainable Connecticut Task Force. And so the Sustainable CT Task Force has to have 2 members from the Conservation Commission on that task force. So right now we have, Richard's been on it for, I guess, 2 years now we've been working on it. And Pam was on it, but now she's a commissioner, so she can stay on it and she can switch her hats off. But if you want to just share with us, Richard, what Sustainable CT is about, and Pam, what some of the ideas are for getting us to silver certification. So Richard, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, actually, we have a Conservation Commission. We have a fair amount of overlap, since Sustainable covers a wide range of things from natural resources to how we deal with affordable housing, transportation, culture, things like that. So it's sort of, Conservation Commission focuses on the science of the earth and parks, those sorts of things. Sustainable covers that and perhaps every other aspect of a town, society, and the spaces we live in. And so there's a lot going on. We're going to do something for Earth Day, which is April 22nd. And this is the, I think, 51st Earth Day. And I shouldn't say, but I was a freshman in college.
Oh, you froze just when we were going to figure out how old you are. Uh-oh, Richard.
Just in the nick of time.
Yeah, Richard, you froze. Okay, so he was a freshman in college for the first Earth Day, which was 51 years ago. Okay, until Richard comes back, Pam, would you like to just kind of share some of your thoughts about sustainable CT?
Sure. Well, I think there's 13 buckets. I did a Sustainable 101 I mentioned last night for the Trumbull community women. And it's everything from, helping the homeless to establishing a Pollinator Pathway. That's a new initiative for this year. So we've taken some of the easier things to do, and we got bronze certification last November. And it's not just something that we can brag about. As a sustainable town, a certified sustainable town, we can ask for monies, matching funds for programs that we want to do. So it's actually, it's a pragmatic approach to getting some help from the state for some projects. So for this year, there are a number of us on the committee that we all have our favorite thing to work on. There's a couple of people that really are into energy. And then there's me with Pollinator Pathway and composting. And so everybody's wearing a different hat when they go to look at some of the achievements that we want to get to for this year's silver certification. And I think that we can do it especially if we can partner with other committees and other towns. Richard started to mention Earth Day. We're actually going to do an Earth Week, and that's going to kick off on the Sunday before Earth Day. Earth Day is on the 22nd, which is a Thursday. And we did a survey online for things that people would be interested in hearing about and doing. And so I'm communicating with the folks in Fairfield about maybe doing something with them around a movie screening or something like that we can do together. So it's really, there's a lot of things in sustainable CT that are not necessarily conservation commission-y, but certainly there's plenty to sink our teeth into for it.
That's great. Yeah, it's nice to be able to do these projects and get credit for it in some way. And the natural resource inventory is something we got a lot of credit for. So that really helped us to drive our points because it's such a difficult thing to do. So it's such a daunting task. So
Question on that, Mary Ellen.
Yes.
How do we move, or what's needed to move from bronze to silver? Like what's the criteria? If now's not the time, we could table it.
That's a great question.
I'm curious, thank you.
Well, for the first round, we needed 200 points. And so, for instance, there was something about invasive plant management, and that was worth 25 points, and we got 20. So we had to do a number of things and provide documentation to get those 20 points. And so we got to 220, and we made bronze. Silver is another 200 points. Those first 200 points, there were things that, I don't like to use the words low-hanging fruit because it doesn't show that we worked hard. We worked hard, but things like the natural resource inventory were already in process. It was something we can grab and say, we've done this, and here's whatever, I don't know if it was 40 points or whatever it was it got us.
So those new 200 points that we have to get, those I guess would be helpful if maybe that your team could share with us what they are, and then we can, at least what categories they're in.
We have a spreadsheet that we put together with the list of things that we're working on. Each one of us is working on and how many points it's worth. Some things that, I mean, there's one that's public transportation. You know, we're probably not going to get that in Trumbull. There are a number of other things that would be harder for us to do. But I'll happy to share either via email or however you think it makes sense to share the list of things that we're working towards.
I'd be interested.
Yeah, what's the date that we'd have to get those 200 points in?
There's 2 rounds. There's a submission, I think, in April, which we're probably not going to make. And then there's one in August. It's like I think August is you can submit and they'll give you feedback. And I think it's September is the cutoff for this year.
Okay. So,
Now, I have a quick question. Do we have to do anything to maintain our bronze status?
Not this quickly. I think it's 5 years. There's probably new things that we're going to have to do to maintain. But we just got bronze last November, so I think we're safe for a little while. And I think that I heard that they're going to put in a gold certification.
oh,
You know, I mentioned last night that I did a whole song and dance around sustainable Trumbull, like a sustainable Trumbull 101 for the Trumbull community women. And it's got lists of things that we've done and lists of things that we're working on. And I'm happy to share that with you guys too.
that would be great. You know, and maybe our next meeting, we can set across some time. Maybe you can do that presentation for us, just so that we're all, you know, we all have a better understanding of this sustainable Trumbull. That would be cool.
Yeah, I think not only does this team need a better understanding of it, I think everybody needs a better understanding of it, because we've been working for 2 years and a lot of people in town had no idea.
No idea that you-
So.
Thanks, Pam.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's clearly something that that we need to get better at as a town, is outreach to residents about the good stuff that's going on.
Now,
and-
when you did the Pollinator Pathway introduction at the library last year, you mentioned, you know, outreach and different groups, garden clubs, whatnot, that, you know, would be good to have that kind of outreach education. Do we have a list of those kinds of things, or is that something we should create? I mean,
List
there's organizations.
of the organizations, of the team members.
Well, just organizations that are good to educate, that can then, you know, educate other people,
Yes.
you know, to have give presentations to, like Pam talked to Trumbull women yesterday.
Yeah, we, you know, and that's something I think we, you know, I kind of put together a rudimentary list, but that's something that I think that's a good idea, Sarah, to just kind of dive into it and find out, you know, what else exists here already, like what teams we have, what organizations. We have a nursery with Wakeman White Birch. We have our own town nursery. We've got a golf course, which I know Tim has brought up as, you know, interest in working with the golf course on sustainable land use practices and a site on the Pollinator Pathway. They actually came to the presentation last year. So yeah, getting those teams together and then out, you know, reaching out to them again and then doing this presentation and giving them jobs to do. Like the community women want to, they were going to put together some outdoor pollinator pots, like pots with pollinator plants in them, maybe in front of some of our stores with a sign in it, just to create awareness. So, so yeah, that's definitely something, you know, I can share with you the presentation too, so you can see. And I wouldn't mind doing it again. I probably would be good to do it again.
Yeah, I know both the garden clubs. I know the Nichols Garden Club better because they put me on their tour a couple of years ago, and I got to meet a couple of the women there. They're small clubs. You know, I think it's great to get them involved, and they're all very passionate about gardening. But I think if we start to establish Pollinator Pathway spots around town, I was at Tasha Knowles on Sunday and took a walk, and I'm like, oh wow, this would be a great place to have a presence. But it's also, you know, putting those signs up and explaining what it is, because as people walk through the valley or they walk through our parks, there's really nothing that points to this is what this is. You should do this. You can do this at home. Like, how do we educate people who are just walking through?
Yep, that's true. And Tasha Knowles has really done a good job. They have something called Monarchs in the Rough, which is a national initiative to bring monarchs to the golf courses. They're part of Audubon International, which is also a certification for golf courses. And they have some Pollinator Pathway signs up there. And they actually last year, the year before, and I'm sure last year too, they had like fish tanks in the lobby with not fish in them or water, but chrysalis of monarchs. So the golfers could come in and see monarchs, you know, it like in the chrysalis and the metamorphosis of monarchs. I mean, that was just mind blowing to me that a golf course would do that. So they're very receptive up there. They're a really good team. So they would be a great visible stop on the Pollinator Pathway for us. So let's see.
Richard's back.
I'm back.
Richard, oh, we missed you. What
Sorry
happened?
about that. It's funny because my Ethernet to the office and the Wi-Fi went down, but I was listening to web radio in the background, which didn't go out. So I had to restart my router and then my modem, and I guess I'm back. So I have we have Spectrum. This has been happening. We'll lose things for 30 seconds or a minute or two, just enough to be annoying. But it is what it is. So, you know, Pam filled in. Pam is one of the ultra uber members of Sustainable. You know, they're working all sorts of things from recycling. A couple quick things. I think the Pollinator Pathway is a really great thing because it doesn't take much more than, you know, like a potted plant or two or a small garden. And it's something that, you know, is easy to do. One thing I want to mention is a couple of years ago, we sent a letter to lake residents where, especially to try to keep people from having their nice, perfectly manicured lawn going right to the water's edge. And so there's some things that, you know, we can do, you know, with that, trying to educate people. We also, White Birch Nursery, several years ago, I think it was my first project where we tried to help him determine why his pond was so full of algae and so on. You know, so we do a lot of things like that. One thing I wanted to mention regarding education is, do you all know what QR codes are? Those are those square little codes, you know, that can be small or large. I see them on TV commercials. And one thought, you know, that I like to work on with the town is, you all have probably been to Old Mine Park, and there's a really nice kiosk that a former member, Don, who has a sign business, put up. And the idea would be they'd have a QR code they'll put on that, and the QR code, all it does is take you, you know, to a website. So the thoughts would be to, you know, educate people. Those who want more information, could be a trail map, could be talking about, you know, how to reduce pollution. There's erosion on, you know, the Valley Trail that's probably caused by us not quite handling runoff properly. So there are educational things we can do, give people more information, show them, you know, things that could be done better, things we're doing well. And so that's one of the things that I'm going to, you know, want to work on with the town. It's actually very simple to do. So that was it.
Yeah, that would be great. And yes, so Don Watson is, you know, he was on the Conservation Commission for a while. He owns Earthrise, and he does ecological consulting mostly for design for flooding. And so he's also quite an artist, and he does a lot of great signs. So yeah, so that's something that I think would be good for us going forward. If you ever go if you want to see an example of what this commission has done, if you go to Old Mine Park, before you go over that little bridge into Old Mine, on the left-hand side, you'll see this massive riparian buffer that's planted with all kinds of native shrubs. It's got a little bridge that goes over a bioswale pool. And we put that in with a grant, I want to say in 2013. And it's quite massive now. And the purpose of it was to prevent runoff from that little parking lot there into the Paquanic River. And it's always a nice comparison when the geese show up and they're on one side of the river where it's lawn to the river and the geese are over there. They never come to the side that we have the riparian buffer in anymore, because that's where predators can hide. And so it really was a great lesson about landscaping, as Richard said, the buffers, and it's healthier for the water. It reduces the goose population. And it's a nice place. There's a couple of seats in there for people to sit on. So, that's the kind of project that we worked on as a commission. So.
Hey, Mel, I have a question about that. I'm very familiar with Old Mine. I go there a lot with the dog, and I love that kiosk. What does something like that cost? Yeah.
The kiosk itself, the three-sided one, if I recall, it was about $4,000, $3,000 to $4,000 for that. And I think Don did a lot of the artwork for that at pretty significant discount. And we got it was DEP clean water funding. So John would know about that 319 funding. And so a couple of projects that we've supported in town, there's another 319 funded project up in Long Hill Green, where we put in permeable pavement up there in front of the Italian restaurant up there, the bakery. And so that was just to manage, because that's the very top of the Paquanic River watershed. It's up high. So if we can capture as much of that stormwater up there before it goes down into the river, then that's a benefit. So those are things that we got some grants for. And that's why, John's, his relationship with the DEP and his ability to communicate with them will be helpful for us, because looking for grants is really a challenge. It's an art in itself, not something that we do well. So, or to even know what grants are out there, that would be a great help. Having John on board, because he's kind of got his ear to the ground for the DEP about what things we can apply for to help to fund projects like that riparian buffer.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk with them. And I know they're doing a lot of land acquisition. There's money there from the Pittman-Robertson Act to use on restoration. The federal government has taken a lot of money in on the Pittman-Robertson Act over the past 6 years. And I know there's a lot of extra money flowing into the state of Connecticut for that. And I know they're doing land acquisition and they're doing a lot of restoration. So I'm sure there's money there, and I'll work on getting in touch with the right people.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I mean, Don Watson was always good at helping us with those grants, and we kind of rely on Rena Bacalar. She knows how to write grants very well. So if we can just be aware of them and know what we have to do, and then we can kind of work together to apply for them. So yeah, that's great. That would be great. So let's see. The other thing that I just wanted to, I'm going to share my screen for a second here and pull up the, Oh, I can't share my screen because this is not my Zoom.
Yeah, Bill can.
No, you should be able to share your screen.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, there we go. I found it. All right. Got it.
Anyway, in case
And
anybody
there it
doesn't
is.
know,
Yeah. I thought I wasn't driving the bus, so I didn't think I could share the screen.
Bill is the town's IT person. I'm not sure Bill ever goes home.
I don't think
He
he
does all the town Zooms and thank you, Bill.
Luckily, I am home.
Well, okay, yeah.
Oh, good. There you go. Okay, so this is the natural resource inventory that I sent you. And, so before we have our next meeting at the end of April, if I could ask you guys to kind of go through it. Because so Dimitri Paris, I don't know if you guys know Dimitri, he's our park superintendent. He is extremely excited about this inventory, of course, because so many of our parks have now been evaluated on the ground for him. And it's a daunting task for him to keep up with what's going on in some of the open spaces, there's the recreational open spaces, and then there's the passive recreational open spaces, which are like our valley. And so in discussion with Dimitri, who I sent this to, he looked through it and he had a very interesting point. And this is kind of, I never thought about it this way as I looked at this inventory, but it is truly supposed to be an inventory, which is just the facts, ma'am. It's the observations of parcels. And if you go through there, here's a lot of maps. But the field surveys that he did were, all of our parks and other small open spaces that are not quite parks. And there's a lot of land in here. And each one of these has been evaluated. But what Jim also did in here was made recommendations. And it didn't come to my attention until Dimitri and I had this discussion that a natural resource inventory should be an inventory. It should be objective and an overview. So as you are going through, let's see if I can pull up a park here to look at, just to give you an example. So this is just such an incredible document, but if I can get through one of our parks, review of existing studies. Let's see. So he touches on the Paquanic River Watershed Plan, which we have in this town. That's another big document that was done around 2007 and 2009. I was on that committee, and that was a watershed plan. So it was a plan and it made observations, but it made recommendations. And so Jim highlighted a lot of existing studies that have been done in the town and made recommendations. But of course, why can't I? So here's an example. Is this the Trumbull? So he has a whole section on threats. So threats in water pollution, threats from flooding, threats in development and clearing. And this is an example of a clear cut that is at the back of the Trumbull Nature and Art Center. It was done a couple of years ago. This is the homeowner who owns all this land that goes down to the property line for the Trumbull Nature Center. And it had been all woods. It was a wooded slope. And he cleared this slope. I'm not sure why, but it has created an eyesore. It creates an opportunity for erosion. And this is the kind of thing that when we observe it, and Jim has observed this happening many times in the inventory, that we should be able to, as a town, generate policy that should prevent stuff like this from happening. So when we see these observations, we should be able to use them to influence practices and recommendations to inland wetland or planning and zoning, and say, for example, this is a greater than 15% slope. rule of thumb, best practice is you should not clear anything that's greater than a 15% slope, which was done here and it's done in other locations. So these observations that were done in this report, also there are recommendations. And what Dimitri said, which I think is really helpful, is that we should separate out the observations in the inventory from the recommendations. So for example, here's the Paquanic River Valley. He goes through, Jim, the ecologist that did this, goes through conservation values, tells the story of the valley, all the details of the sizes of the land in there, what kind of rock outcrops there are. And here's an example of a picture he put in here, resulting erosion at River Trail, 1.8 miles north of the rail to trail entrance. And so this is an observation that he's made that really should be put into another document that can be used for the town to drive policy and plans. Because this document right now, this is like 600 pages. And so if we were to go to inland wetland and say this was caused by, you know, whatever reason this occurred, it would be hard to dive into this huge document and find these recommendations. Dimitri's recommendation is they should be pulled out and put into a separate management plan. So it should be like an open, there should be the natural resource inventory and then pull out the recommendations. And it should be easy for us to do because look at here, he's got, he goes over the hemlock groves, like the geological observations that he makes in here. This is what is in a natural resource inventory. Maybe here's beech bark disease that he saw in one of the beech trees, white ash sugar maple woods. So this is an inventory of what's in our parks. Wet meadows, wetlands, this is still just the Paquanic River Valley. I mean, this is massive amount of work that he's done. Tulip Forests. Now I'm trying to get to the point where I mean, these flowers are just amazing. Look at, we've got trillium in there, bloodroot, trout lily, which these are very rare ephemeral flowers that you know, don't often see. They're in our valley and it's quite impressive. Pink lady slippers, they're all in there. And so that is what should be in a natural resource inventory. Also this was a wool and glove lining factory, ruins south of Whitney Avenue. So he's got natural history and human history in here. But then as you go towards the end, he makes, okay, so this is the point where comes into, he makes observations on things that are, have occurred that should be corrected. And so his point is they shouldn't be in this document because there's some things that we need to address and correct. So it shouldn't be in here because, you know, 10 years from now, that won't be there. Hopefully a year from now, we'll be able to fix that. So let me just go to the section. So the idea is to go through sections that he has recommendations. Come on, come on. This is why I like looking at paper journals. Okay, so here we go. Threats, the threats and the recommendations. What's going on in here in terms of pollution that he saw, and then the recommendations that he makes should be in a different document. And in a document, whether it's called a management plan or something that's easy for our land use boards to access, and then they can make changes. So, so that is kind of, you know, as you guys look through this, just observe that for each piece of property he reviewed, he does this. Jim has threats and recommendations. And Dimitri's thought was that that should be pulled out of here And we should put it into, like here, this is an inventory. This is all the grasses he saw in there, the ferns, the birds he observed. I mean, this is still the Paquanic River Valley. It's just quite remarkable. And then he gets to Beach's Memorial. And then he does the same thing, goes through observations and then threats and recommendations. So I'm curious to see what you guys think about diving into this, and we can have Jim come back and do it because he's got this document and he can change it, but pulling out the threats and recommendations and creating an open space management plan, which is a totally different document for people. So does anybody have an opinion on that? So if you as a resident were going to look at our natural resource inventory, you would want to go in there and see our hiking trails, what you can look for, what's growing there, what kind of birds are there. And you don't necessarily want to see the threats and recommendations. That's what Dimitri's saying. Should be a separate document. So what are your thoughts on that?
I have an opinion, of course.
Yes.
I sat in when Jim presented this. I was watching, and I was fascinated by the recommendations as a resident who didn't know all these things. So I guess my question is, can it be both? Can it have the recommendations in the document? So if a resident goes through this, they can go, oh gosh, I didn't know that we have all this erosion and that we should do something about it. And then we take those out in a separate document, but keep them in this one, but then have it in a recommendation document someone else can work with.
Yeah, what we can do with that, what we can do is literally, if we have, the original file, is literally, copy and paste what Jim has in there, because we want to be careful that we don't change his wording as a scientist. But we literally lob that off. It'll be a fraction of the size. But what we would do is reference the NRI, the page section number. So if you want to know, why is erosion a problem in the Paquanic Park? You can say, well, this is what we recommend. Here's the threats. If you want to read more about it, subpage, 4,000 has, more details on that. But I think it's a great idea because it's a great document, but it's sort of like a document, a big book you'd put on your coffee table that you might look at on occasion. But if we take out, the key points, and then the town could use that document for their other purpose, I think that'd be great. Now, I'm sort of one of the people who's volunteered to do this. This is kind of an overlap to sustainable group. And so this is one of the things I'd be happy to work on, but I also want to get, people's input. And of course, we also, we need, Jim's, obviously he's aware of this being done, and he has sort of authorization, to copy these sections out, keep his writing intact. I mean, we could add lead-ins and perhaps some additional paragraphs, but leave his words, essentially intact.
Hey, Mel, can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I think, because I've been going to the Valley all my life, and the document's great. I did a lot with Jim, especially with Tashua Tree Farm. I think it's a great idea to do that as a management tool. And maybe we can kind of prioritize these things.
Yeah.
Maybe pick off some of the low-hanging fruit. Maybe some of the things that the town of Trumbull could do with the highway department, like simply installing riprap. Because our number one concern probably with the valley is water quality.
Yeah.
A lot of that has to do with inadequate stormwater management. There is, the town of Trumbull has new stormwater regs. Maybe this is something that the town can maybe focus a little bit more on, and solving some of these areas where the erosion can, like I said, be fixed with riprap. I don't know. I think it's a good idea. I think it could be prioritized, get whoever from the engineering department involved, and maybe kind of go at it from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if we can, because, we don't exactly make high salaries. And so, we can, prepare this document, a sort of a Cliff's Notes version of just the key points. We can, somehow prioritize that before we did that. Or even as simple as copy and paste into a new document so it's much shorter, and it might be a little bit easier to call, the priorities that way, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can do the two together. I mean, obviously, if the Paquanic is one of the, would be one of the job ones. I mean, the water quality is degraded as it comes through Trumbull. And of course, that goes into the sound. So if the towns, downstream and those along the sound, want to have, good quality, waterways and water bodies. So this is really critical. And there are things that we can do. I mean, this really isn't a lot of rocket science. It simply means that when you're doing dirt work, that you put some thought into what you do. Like Mel mentioned, permeable pavement. We had to put a rain garden in for an addition in our, our lot here, just to control runoff. So there's things that can be done that are relatively simple, but if the town's not aware of it, then nothing will get done. So I think this may be one of the most effective things that we've done. And Jim did not make a lot of hourly rate to do this. He really, for what he did, he could have gotten paid a lot more for it. So I think this is great that Dimitri and the town has an interest in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jim, I'm sure would have no problem. I mean, we're still in the editing stage of this. We haven't, Dimitri's edits and recommendations were the first ones that we've got. I shared this with a lot of people in town. He's the only one that got back to me. So some of the comments he made that it should be an unbiased assessment. There were elements in here that were pretty subjective, and minor things like tires and dog poop. And, and I think they have a sense, kind of critical, and it shows poor stewardship. And I think it kind of, I think it was, he didn't want that in a document that was going to be out there forever. So, but, I understand it. But he said, unless there's catastrophic changes, like all that erosion that we're seeing, then, that's something that we can focus on. But if I can get Jim to just pull those sections out for all of the open spaces, and then we can work on prioritizing them, like Tim said. Prioritizing them would be great, because we have the Paquanic River Watershed plan, which makes recommendations as well. And so I'm sure some of those things are overlapping, but nobody ever looks at that plan. So we have to make sure that this is something that, when we go to our land use boards, we have a brand new document that has observations that are existing in our landscape now that we need to make changes to prevent from happening again. So I do like Pam's idea of just like keeping this full document as a full document, and then just pulling out, duplicating those sections into something else.
I have a question about this, and it goes to what Pam said. And I was on the call also where this was presented, and I agree with, there was like a lot of things that I didn't know that I thought were interesting that I just wasn't. I mean, I live right by the rail trail, and I've been on it hundreds of times, and I didn't fully understand some of what I was seeing. Is this document intended just for the use of the town and the commissions and organizations within the town, or also for the public? And the reason I ask the question is because what Pam was saying about, the threats and the recommendations are useful for, if it's true that it's for the public, for everyone to know, maybe there's opportunity to put it on the website. Like I have as my New Year's resolution this year to go to every green space in town. And I frankly have found it difficult. Like I went to Thousand Oaks or whatever it's called for the first time recently, and it's a beautiful property. And I've had some trouble with the website finding what are all the open spaces, what's interesting and unique about them. And this seems like it would be an amazing resource to have available if that's part of the intended audience, or if it's only intended for the town to be able to make town decisions. Obviously, that's a different way to approach this.
No, the intent, it's supposed to be a public document. Yep. So this is supposed to be available for the public. And, you know, it would be wonderful if we had a public Zoom that people could get on, and, you know, we bring Jim in and he can highlight this for people so that they know that it's there. But that's a good point. Like where, I mean, Bill can tell us, like, where would we put something like this? It's a link to a document like this somewhere on the website.
Well, and that's why I was wondering if there was, and maybe I don't know if I just couldn't find it, because like sometimes on a Sunday I'll say, oh, it's a nice day, I'm going to go to a place I've never been before, I want to go to the town website. If there's a property, then maybe there's a link just to the section of the document for that property. Like maybe the document can be pulled apart by the property level. And like there's, you know, one for Twin Brooks and one for Old Mine and one for Thousand Oaks and like all the other places I've never been yet.
So the website does have a facilities module in it. We're still working on updating all those facilities based on like what they have there, you know, public bathroom or field or whatever. These descriptions would be great. So each park does have one.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes it so much more appealing when you read something like this, and you know what you're going to go see, and like especially with kids, like I get kids excited.
That's an excellent point. It's an amazing resource, and I've gone to the town website to look at the different parks when I was working on some things for Sustainable Trumbull. And it was good to know that there was 56 acres at blah, blah, blah park, but that was really the extent of it. So something with a little bit more meat would be amazing to have for the public to just click on.
We would love to steal this content.
Hey, Bill, I have a question, kind of an IT question. If you had this full document on the website, could you, for example, QR codes would be a perfect opportunity. So if somebody walked up into a park entrance, you could have a 4x4 post with a QR code that would take you, but could you have the code when it's, I don't know, HTML, I don't know, on websites, could you have that particular part of the document linked to a QR code, or would you have to call out that section? In other words, take out a Park A section as a separate web document that you would link to?
Yeah, I think the way the QR code would work is that if someone scanned the QR code, it would bring them to a page, not necessarily a spot in the document.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but certainly a page would work.
Yeah, I had done an experiment a year or two ago. I literally went to a free QR code generator and I printed it out on a piece of paper, different sizes. And I went to my own personal website as a link. It was amazing how simple it was, because this website, normally you have to pay for these, but it was a free demo. And you write in, the URL on the QR code, print it out, and then you take your phone that's web enabled, and essentially every phone can do this, you scan it in, it takes you to the website. So it's amazing, and they can be small or they can be large. And as long as you have enough resolution to get the bits to be seen by the camera, I think this is a great opportunity. Now there's some cost involved. And of course, right now with COVID especially, the town does not have a surplus. But I think the Old Mine Park would be a perfect spot to try this out. The key is to have a stable website where we get direct content to. And so, Sarah, this would be one opportunity for you, and in the process of taking out these sections, I'm envisioning we go to the website, natural resource inventory, and you could have a link, perhaps by park, where you would just call out that particular section. And that could also be the QR code link. So you accomplish two things at once.
Right.
And I envision on the where the erosion is, where Jim noticed and photographed the erosion, envisioning a QR code there to educate people on erosion. Now, the town attorneys, and there's probably potentially some human resources issues, or do you want the town folks to realize that erosion could have been stopped if the town or homeowner maybe had not have done it properly? And that example that Jim has in it, where that homeowner clear cut that big area, there's some legal issues there. So I'd be sensitive about those issues, but I think the education for people in Joy Trumbull, and then educating people, on how we can do things better. I mean, Trumbull it's amazing the stuff we have here, and the picture on the front cover of the NRI is not in Colorado or Wyoming, where I lived for a few years. It could literally be there. I mean, it's hard to imagine that's in the heart of Trumbull, and it's a real asset. And people talk about moving to Fairfield so you can walk to your restaurant. I think I'd almost rather walk into a park personally, because I can drive to Fairfield in 15 minutes. So, this is a really, in advertising, for Trumbull, because we really have natural resources here that not every town has.
Yep, that's true. So does anybody else have any comments about this?
Yeah, I think a few people touched on this. I think it would be a really good idea to have a cut down version for the public, and not to hide this from the public, but to reference this in case they want to do more research. I just think, 800 and some odd pages of information is not going to do it for most people. I think a lot of people are looking for, where is the land, what's available on it? And I think it would be better to cut down that version and give the inventory to people, and in a more concise fashion, so they could visit these places and then reference the full report, so they can get to all the information. I just think a lot of people are going to look at this, get confused, and maybe not look at the more remote places because there's just too much information here.
Yeah.
Those are really good points.
To have to scroll through here to get to whatever park I'm looking for is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So, so I guess, at this point, just if I could have you, just through the lens of, if you are the public and you were going to use this document, on one hand, what would you want to see? And then on the other hand, as a land use board or an inland wetland or land acquisitions, what would you want to see, in a different document? So it's all about making it more user-friendly and accessible. So, and I'm not quite sure how to do that with technology. I'd actually love to just have this printed out into a big spiral book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the person who created this, Jim, I think you said, he, instead of giving it to us as a PDF, can he give it to us the original? That would make things a lot easier.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would.
Because we can pull it apart. I mean, you can do things with PDFs, but if it was in a Word or whatever, that's a lot easier for most people to work with.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the final document wasn't in PowerPoint, I believe. But Mary Ellen, I wouldn't mind calling him, or just to see. I mean, one idea would be just to cull out just the threats and recommendation sections, into a draft document. And then, as a start, I mean, we could see what the practical point of that is. If it seems to be a useful way, then of course, referencing the NRI. I think the NRI document itself is a good reference point, but I definitely agree with John that to read 629 pages is just not going to happen with most people. But if you have one interest, you can read more if you want, or just get the basics. But I wouldn't mind working on culling that that document. I'm not sure if he has the photos, if it's all in one document, or if the images, the JPEGs, are in one document, he put it together in PowerPoint. I'm not sure. But even in PowerPoint, that's still very usable to, you can, drop that text into Word.
Yeah.
And we even do it, into Google Docs if we wanted to look on. That may be better to collaborate together on a document. Anybody thoughts about that?
Sharing it as a Google Docs. Yeah, that would.
So we would take off just the sections of interest, and if we had that in Google Docs, then now we don't. Sustainable has their own Google Drive where we can collaborate. I don't believe the Conservation Commission has a Drive page. We had one up that we could, all collaborate together. One cool thing on Sustainable, we have in, let's see, Google Sheets, I believe it is, Excel version of Docs, is when we used to actually meet in real time with our laptops, we were all going through this document to Sustainable, and we can see the changes that we're making. So that's just, one way to, that we could share it that way.
So I think what I'll do is I'll reach out to Jim. I'll talk to him. Maybe he can join us at our next meeting, and we can talk through with him, because he's done these before. He's done these for other towns, and so it would be interesting to know the experience of what format he's put this in that has been usable for people. I think that our town is unique because we have so many parks and open spaces. I think per capita, we have the most acreage of, I think it's most acreage of dedicated parkland in the state per capita.
Great. I think it would be interesting. I don't know how many he's done for other towns, but it would be interesting to see what a similar town has done with the document, to see how it feels when you go to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. The first one I saw that he did was Mount Kisco. So I can, I'll send you his link, or it's JN Land Trust and Services, and that's his site. And on there, he's got the documents that he's done and other things he's done. So, but yeah, I mean, this is such a valuable document, and I've got this great new team of people here that I would just love for you to kind of go through it and think about the best way we can, first of all, present this to the public in Trumbull as a gift, because this is truly our commission has done, this is ours. No one else has done this. So we will present it to the town. But in what format should we present it so that it's usable to the public and usable to our land use boards? So
yeah, we can talk. I know we're running out of time, but it would be great to do another library Zoom or something like that, because I thought the Pollinator Pathway thing was so great. Maybe he could come and do something like that for the town.
Absolutely. I think it would be great for him to do that. And then just make people aware of it. So
one suggestion for the Pollinator Pathway, have you ever worked with the Trumbull Nature Center on anything like this?
The TNAC has, the Long Hill Garden Club has gone in and put in a monarch station for them. They have quite a bit of invasive plants there that they're working to eradicate, but essentially with that monarch station, that is a pollinator pathway. in and of itself.
Well, I'm really talking about public outreach. I know I teach some youth classes at the Trumbull Nature Center a couple of times a year. And from being a parent, I know that a lot of times parents get driven by children. So it would be a great thing to, once COVID is over and we feel safe about this, to have a class and educate kids, probably a hands-on thing about the Pollinator Pathway, and then they'll want to get involved and drive their parents. It'd just be a different way to approach it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great, and teach them just, we all seem to have interest in, these native plants and native plantings, and just getting maybe little gardens together and teaching the kids, if they get a little kit with 4 or 6 pollinator plants in it that they can take home and then make their own little, whether it's a pot or a garden, and then just tell people, work with the kids and say, these are the butterflies that are going to show up, or these are the bees that are going to show up. And then before you know it, they've got a garden in their yard that's for pollinators, and then they'll make it bigger and bigger and bigger. And so, yeah, I mean, TNAC is a great resource, for teaching the kids. I think more so than the schools sometimes.
Well,
One thought about that would be when in Southington, the Conservation Commission, once a year in the town's touch a truck, we have families, going in there. We passed out seedlings, that were, 6 inches or so high, and we had only so many of those. But one thought would be a pollinator pathway, maybe seeds or something. Especially if somebody could donate those, and then we could have the kids could plant those. We'd have a little, educational 1-page thing with a link for more information. And I think, Johnny, you're right. I mean, the wave of the future will be the kids, and as far as sustainability of our environment goes on the planet. So, a lot of times we educate the kids, but you're right, the kids can educate their parents. But ultimately, the young kids generation will be the one that hopefully will carry sustainability to where it should be on the planet and in town.
I'll tell you, I have 3 children and they're 10 years apart. And, as a business owner, I can tell you that I had less time with my 2 older children. Each children got more time. And I will tell you, my 3rd child's been out with me in nature from before she could walk in a backpack. And I can tell you, there's a big difference between the way they view nature. And I just think the hands-on with the kids is big, is big, and get them involved. And I'll do anything for my daughter. She's got me doing everything with plants that I may not have time to do, but I make time because she wants to do it. So I really think that the children will drive the parents to do more, and it'll help the cause.
Yeah.
John, you must know Mark Cineri, who's the teacher at the Trumbull Nature Center. He's a beekeeper, so he's very into that.
I worked with Pam for many years, and I'm trying to think of the woman I deal with right now. I teach an archery class to youth. And
My son took that. He loved it.
it's been,
He wants a bow and arrow. He's been talking that's all he wants is now a bow. For years.
I sometimes get stopped in the supermarket and called the archery guy. But yeah, I just think it's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Pam. Pam, was that you or your dog? So that was really, all I had for tonight. It's little after 8:30, and it just wanted to kind of get everybody together and introduce you and think about, celebrate what we did last year and then what we'd like to go forward this year. And I think between Pollinator Pathway and the Natural Resource Inventory, I think we've got some good fun projects to,
Yeah.
to work on, and the interest that we have in our hiking trails and all that, that's all there in that inventory. So, for those of you that like to hike, when you read through it, see how useful, some of the information would be, and how you would want to access it. And for plants and pollinator plants, so I have right now a native plant sale is open for the Aspetuck Land Trust. We're going to leave it open probably for a few more weeks, and we're selling truly native plants. The seeds were wild collected, and they were propagated in Newtown at Planter's Choice.
Yeah.
And I know that Richard bought some last year, and his landscaper whacked them down. So we're going to have to get you some new ones.
Well, no, actually, funny thing is, they grew more than I thought. Maybe a couple of them didn't, but I was amazed. I thought I left enough space, but they, started to grow into the grass. I put a metal edge around them, but they work great. I was amazed that they would grow back like that.
Yeah, that's the beauty of natives. And there's a lot of mountain mint, and I know that Sarah and Matthew too have been very into looking at natives and doing some restoration in their backyards. And it's really all about teaching people to get these plants into their backyards, and then the pollinators will show up. And then if they show up, then the caterpillars do, and then the birds show up. And before you know it, you've got things for the kids to watch in the yard and for you to watch. And I think that's kind of our role now. And a big part of the Pollinator Pathway is getting people to, plant natives and avoid pesticides and rethink your lawn. It's been tried and true. We practiced it in, we're up to probably 230 towns now in Connecticut, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Maryland. So it definitely works. It's a great thing for a town to work on together and teach the kids, as John said, about the pollinators. So, I think this is the year for us to help to drive this pollinator pathway.
On the plant sale, I'm in a unique position maybe because Jakes Warren, the tree warden, showed up at my door about a month ago, knocked on the door, said, "I'm taking down 3 trees in your yard." And I now have 3 stumps in my yard. And so but I'm sort of paralyzed because I don't know what to do and I have stumps. So, so I did actually reach out to one of the native nursery in Fairfield.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm about to learn a lot, I think, in the process of a homeowner of wanting to do the right thing, but not knowing what it is. So I hope I'll be able to bring some of those lessons.
Yes, we can follow your journey.
Yeah.
We'll follow your journey. So take photos now of the stumps, and then, we'll have, the folks at Native are a big help to just have somebody, evaluate your soil and all that. And then, we can work together on a plan that we can add to over the years, or you can add to over the years. And Pam's garden alone is incredible, the work that she did on her own. That would be a great field trip when we're allowed to.
I was gonna say, do we have a garden tour?
Yeah, come on over. I tell you, between losing my job and COVID, I was out there every day for 6 hours a day, all from starting in this late, I guess a very early spring into winter. I was out there and I cleared a lot of invasives.
It's amazing. It's huge. Her area, the area that she cleared by hand, is just
so tired.
Remarkable. It's just really incredible. So, we've got, and I know, Matthew, you have a pond in your backyard. Do you have?
Yeah, we have pond and wetlands. It's 2 acres of land. Maybe an acre is usable, but with the rest, we're trying to put in some of the what was the word used before? Riparian zone?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. To mitigate some of the water issues, and then the land that is relatively dry. I mentioned the 20 trees we planted. So it kind of like to Pam's point is you're always looking for something to do, especially with COVID, and it intersects with my interests. So I'm always outside doing something like that. It's been a lot of fun. And the home tour would be interesting. I'm actually really interested in Pam's property and maybe others.
Yeah, I need inspiration.
Come on over. Come over with a mask. I'll show you. I got a lot more to do. So bring a hoe.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a question, Mel, because I'm new to this. I do walk around a lot of the parks with the dog. I'm on the east side a lot. I'm in Twin Brooks a lot. Whose bailiwick is it to put up signs about littering, to put up bins for waste, to put up dog waste stations? I mean, there's a real problem in this town with litter and people letting their dogs mess and even leaving the bags on the trails because there isn't. And I don't know, is that our thing or is that someone else's thing?
Well, that's Parks, and that's Dimitri's crew. And it is a real challenge because it's a challenge we deal with at the Aspetuck Land Trust also. And so easy maybe to put trash cans up for the waste, but then somebody has to come and empty those. And so even at Aspetuck, we don't put out trash cans on our trails, just signs for people if you take your waste home with you. And they tend to just leave their little poo bags by the kiosk or by the sign, by the sign that says no dogs. They'll leave their poo bag. So it's a real problem. And I'm not sure that there's an answer. People should really just be what they bring in, they should bring home with them. But they don't want to put the poo bags in their car. So I don't know how to answer it. Dimitri refuses to put pails out on the trails because that's like...
He actually gave in. Myself and a couple of women from the trails went and presented to the town a couple of summers ago, and we got bins at the Tate Road trailhead, and at the Whitney side, we have bins there now.
Oh.
And it's certainly reduced the amount of litter that is on that spur, but other places, it's just people will leave stuff at the trailhead, so it's tough. Okay, well, you answered my question. Thank you.
I don't know. Well, that's good that they start, maybe they start small with a couple of locations, but then somebody's got to go around and empty them all.
Got to get it,
Yeah.
I will tell you, it's a little disappointing too, because I fish a lot in the valley, and I take a garbage bag down there. And the beginning of fishing season, it's just horrible.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely horrible. It break your heart. And I've told the park ranger about it, but I don't know how much they could really do because the state's involved with that too. I don't know if the state should be more involved, but kids go down to the river and they have parties, and I don't have a problem with them, going down and enjoying it, but clothes, garbage, fishermen, cigarette packs, and I hate to think that sportsmen do that.
Right.
I know in our classes we teach about ethics and nature and what you owe to nature, but it just breaks my heart, the garbage that's down by the river. So it's not only the hikers that are walking along the trail.
No, I picked up a diaper last year off the river on the east side. And I'm the same as you, John. I go in with a bag and I come out, I can barely carry it out. So it's very disappointing.
It's terrible. I mean, I know there've been some river cleanups that you've worked on. Gosh, we took, I don't know how many bowling balls, found a shelf unit, a big screen TV in the Paquanic River behind Trumbull Center. It was like, it's unbelievable. The stuff people just throw in the river, furniture. It's just a state of mind I just don't understand. But yeah, so we'll have to somebody find a solution somewhere. It's about respect and then the lack thereof.
Yeah. I don't know if signs would help, no littering signs, or, if you carry your dog's poop bag, just bring a little pail or, a cardboard box you got from Amazon, plop it in there.
It's not a big deal to carry a bag of poop out of the trail.
No, it's not, no.
I've made the offer before. I'd be happy to make some signs if the town wouldn't mind us putting them up. Because I know they have a lot of kiosks we could attach them to and that type of thing. So the offer's there if anybody wants to, if we could talk to the town and see that that's okay.
Yeah.
Would that be Dimitri? I wonder.
Yeah, Public Works or, oh gosh, George is, George Estrada is the new Public Works Director. And he's really a great guy. So yeah, George would be the one to talk to about that. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
That can be our contribution.
Yeah.
I almost bought signs the other day, John. I was so enraged that I came home and started to shop for signs. And I'm like, you know what am I doing? I can't afford this, but it would be a great idea.
Yeah, well, we need to do that. We're going to need to get Pollinator Pathway signs made. So we should also work. So John, you designed, do you guys design signs or you have? Yeah.
I'll design them. Just, give me an idea where you're going, what you want to say. I'll come up with a design and then come back to you for comments, and we'll make changes and we'll go back and forth and we'll come up with something that we all like.
Okay. That would be cool.
I feel like I've seen in the area several, I don't even know what you call them, things that hold signs that are a Boy Scout project, an Eagle Scout project. So I don't know if anyone has a connection to any Boy Scout troops, but if there are other Eagle Scout potential projects that could be help to make things to hold signs. So I feel like Bill's volunteering.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
But
we could put in posts, but those wood kiosks that are around most of them are blank.
Yes.
they are blank. I have no, I thought they all appeared and I waited to see what was going to go on them and then nothing went on them.
Yeah.
There's one at Twin Brooks. There's one on the trail between Whitney and Old Mine. Those are the two I've seen.
They're waiting for John signs.
There you go.
Well, that's a good,
But just in general, like an Eagle, like if there's a way to get involved and have Eagle Scout projects be helpful, and I don't, know exactly what those would be, but it's just a way to get, it's good for the Eagle Scout or the potential Eagle Scout.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sarah, you bring up a great subject because maybe some of Jim's natural inventory facts could go on some of those kiosks about where you are here. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm an Eagle Scout, and I have a lot of scouting connections in town. So I'll be happy to make those introductions.
Okay, cool.
Great. We found an Eagle Scout.
Mary Ellen, would you like me to call Jim to see if we could maybe just see what format the NRI is in?
Yeah.
And maybe take one section and just to see what the physics of it would be, just taking those two sections as an example. Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
I'll give him a call and just as one example, and then at the next meeting or before, we can talk to folks here and see what we all think.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you. That would be great, Richard, if you could do that. That would be great to work on details like that with him. Excellent.
It sounds like it's a great group. A variety of experiences and backgrounds and so on.
Yeah, and young parents and people with different professional backgrounds, and it's great. So,
Like being called young.
Yes, young parents.
That's never a bad thing.
Yeah.
No.
Young parents, great thing.
Yeah.
No,
it is.
So that's all I have for this evening. Does anybody have any other comments they'd like to make or questions?
Thank you.
No. Well, thank you guys for, it's fun to have these Zoom meetings. I kind of like them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so our next meeting is, it will be after Earth Day. So Pam and Richard, is there that Earth Week that you got, that Sustainable CT is working on?
We kind of are. We're gonna, at our next meeting, which is, I don't have my calendar right up. We're gonna, talk about that, what our ideas to have an Earth Week.
Mhm.
And, I'm not sure, Pam may know more than I do, but whether we're gonna have 1 hour a day or more than 1 hour a day, specific topics. They would probably be a Zoom
Mhm.
program of some kind,
Yeah.
maybe something special on Earth Day.
Well, I definitely, I'd be happy to do that Pollinator Pathway
Yeah.
Zoom. I've actually changed it since last year. I've got so much new.
I put a
Great.
survey up on Facebook and had asked people to share it, and I've had something like 35 votes for different programs for Earth Week. And Pollinator Pathway was at the top.
Yeah.
Growing a vegetable garden was up there, so maybe we can get someone from Wakeman's to do that. And I don't think, just managing that many events is hard. So we're thinking about probably one event a day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I just set up 6 Zooms in March for Aspetuck Land Trust, and it just takes, it's a lot. It's a lot to organize those things. So, but I would like to also, I reached out a couple of times to David Benjamin at Wakeman's. Is he open? He must be open. I haven't driven by. No, he's not open.
There's a sign out there that says, "See you in March."
Okay, so that's why he's not responding. He's surfing somewhere, I think.
Sometimes on weekends, you'll find them there.
On the weekends? Okay.
Sometimes on, winter weekends.
Because we got, that should be, I reached out to him about getting these eco-type plants that we're selling at the plant sale. I would like for him to purchase and sell all summer long for people here in Trumbull, because he would be one of the few nurseries that would be selling them. And I already spoke to Daryl Newman, who runs Planter's Choice in Newtown. He knows David, obviously. But that would be great, because that would drive business to him for the Pollinator Pathway. He's already putting Pollinator Pathway signs that I don't know, he's had his son drawing or something like that last year and the year before. He's got a clover lawn out front. So he's doing really all of the good, native recommendations that Pollinator Pathway has. And I know he's wanted to do Pollinator Pathway. So we'll just keep trying to reach out to him.
You need to put a sign out front that's very prominent that says native plants, because even Benedict's doesn't do a good job of that. And I go to Benedict's a lot in Monroe. So.
Yeah, he needs to, and he's had some good ones. He has really, the past he's had good ones at White Birch there. So we'll keep looking for him. All right, everybody. Well, thank you. Unless we have any other comments, I will close down the meeting for this evening, and we'll keep in touch. And I look forward to seeing everybody on April 28th, I think is the next one, right? Is that what I said? April 28th. Where's my list?
That's what you said at the beginning.
April 28th. Okay, there we go.
7 o'clock.
CC me.
Barbara's nodding.
See you 7 p.m. Okay, great.
Okay,
Well, thank you, everybody.
Hi, folks. Welcome.
Stay healthy and safe. Follow the Fauci.
Yeah.
Wear your masks. I'm getting my shot on Friday.
We got our second ones in a couple weeks.
Oh, man. This is great. So hopefully we'll all be clean by the end of April.
It grows more here, too, as you can see.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks.